Professor S.P. Ravindra. He is going to speak on again third semester studio.
So, lot of ground has already been covered in this respect. Oh. Good afternoon, everybody. Lot of ground has already been covered in this project proposal for third semester teaching. So what I'll be tackling is more structured, but the contention is we start with the structure and disband the structure later. The student is taught how to go about initially. We teach them the basics, but we do not bind them. The whole process is of one of liberation, or making that fellow feel free to think and shape his own way. The other important point is, we get students from different backgrounds whose idea of design, ideation varies drastically, and it's quite difficult to sit with each one of them and then make them feel differently. When all these theories work very well, when the class size is very small, so it can be one-to-one composition. Otherwise, we'll be dealing with slightly normally large numbers, so hence somewhere we get to become prescriptive. But we start as a prescriptive process, then we also encourage people to become elective. And in between, there is also participative process. So we start with the preamble that we are in third semester. That means, the student has certain basic grounding in second semester with regards to aspects like space, light, movement, scale, and structure in formulating an articulation of spaces relating to health, food, services, and education. But of course, it's the first and second semester syllabi has to be looked into again, because it becomes quite prescriptive. The major problem is there is a disconnect between the objective and the types of projects that have been suggested. Of course, this was done a pretty long time back. I think there's a chance to go through it and fine-tune the same thing in the third semester. So the third semester work relates to translating space into place. What I've done here is the objective, as per the objectives, change the formation. The third aspect comes first. So the place making is more basic. Of course, it's also at a higher, the same thing can be tackled at a higher level also. Let us say in the case of urban design studio. But somehow it has crept into this level. But nonetheless, we can try to make this sense of place making. Whatever Mr. Arun Swaminathan showed some time back, they're all examples of creating that sense of place using different things. So I put the last item first, then take the context and the physical and cultural aspects later. So the important thing is the objective is the first one is to understand the nature of place making as an architectural goal. So we have this place making, that is the mode of study, that is the keywords are function, activity, space, and then we have different types of spaces like permanent space where an activity goes on continuously over a period of very long time, maybe everyday basis. Then you have temporary spaces where it is there for a while, and then transient. It can take place only for a few hours or maybe a few days and disappears. Now, what are the elements that heighten this awareness of place? Example, colors. We'll go to the next one. We have colors, textures, and materials. So what happens here is the way the colors can be used to create that sense of enclosure. So we also know that use of bright colors, cool colors, etc., which create a sense, they speak by themselves in the process that they can create this sense of enclosure. I'm using the word sense in apostrophe. So you find that there are other methods also like textures. Rough textures, different varied textures create different types of sensory perception, which can be heightened and used by the student to define a space. In fact, it is nothing but a form of definition. Go to the next one. There is materials also. For example, tents, awnings, umbrella, vehicles, etc. You take a dosa camp, it is not there. The moment it comes, it creates a sense of dynamism around itself. And it becomes such a important hub of activity till the duration of that stay of that particular vehicle. Then of course the sense of enclosure, how much and what type. So this can be explored like walls, roofs, fences, ropes, sheets. You got different types of materials like plastic, fabric, or even sometimes in the form of mobile push carts and then autos, which create that sense of partial enclosure. Of course, nodes, we understand that use of, the existence of poles, trees, steps, and platforms, etc., create a sense of immediacy and a sense of place by themselves. The aspect is to explore the physical aspects relating to anthropometry and sensory aspects like color, texture, smell, sound, light, etc., to understand how these factors create a memory of a place. So most of us, if you remember, if we have to say, we always understand something because of memory only. As we have seen it earlier, or as we got exposed to something earlier, as we have heard about it, it is the one which makes us familiar about the present one. The entire, the tangible one becomes so much more understandable because of this memory. And then we try to encourage the student to create this sense of memory, use this memory to have the sensory perception of that sense of enclosure. So this is about that particular first chapter, the first assignment. I have broken this into 3 phases. Instead of 1 major project and 1 minor project, I have proposed 2 minor projects of 3 weeks each and 1 major project of 6 weeks each, because with the change in topic and subject, there will also be interest in the studio work, and they can explore various other things which are not otherwise possible with one long drawn project all over the place. So the first assignment, essentially, we'll be trying to, this is only suggestive. We have public spaces, semi-public spaces, and private spaces. So you find the streets, bus stations, etc., first one. Then college campuses, not the entire campus, only the activity areas, or institutional spaces where there is a part private, part public aspect. The other one is private spaces like apartments, common spaces, individual like entrance, lobby, landscaped areas, balconies, etc. They create their own sense of dynamism, and a balcony becomes almost a private space if an individual is sitting or maybe a couple of people are sitting together. So the first assignment essentially, I'm going by the structure of the particular syllabus that is given to me. So we try to understand what gives that sense of place, that sense of personal anthropometry, the personal space, the personal bubble, that becomes an important aspect to understand. The creation of that sense, it's not only sense but it's also felt, and the other elements like colors, textures, etc., are used to create that sense of enclosure and a sense of participation by the user. Then we go on to the other ones. The second one is it states factors of the context influencing design design of built environment. The influencing factors, as I presume, must be essentially physical here. So what is important to us to understand, to figure out what can be the result. I'm using the word can in the sense that there are many possibilities to the same context, and the student has to be made aware that even though we have a structured program, it is not that it is so rigid that it is not pliable, it is not so rigid that it cannot be changed at all. So in the process, we explore the different possibilities. So, what are the factors? Physical ones, essentially, location, axis, size, shape, and the rain, what we call the rain bead sign, and winds or breeze, slope levels, gradient, existing landscape like trees, shrubs, and rockery, water bodies, etc. Go to the next one. That is, so, we find that this becomes the starting point. That means he is tapping into the profile of the site to understand what it offers. So the it's like there's a guideline which suggests that if you have to do some good design, you have to spend at least 3 seasons or 2 seasons in the site for some time during rainy season and during spring and during winter, so that you understand the character and understand the aspect of the sense of the site. Then of course the importance of axis like corner site, etc., which has an impact on the street visually. What is the response of the building to the street? That has to be decided, because I have seen a couple of projects in the studio that people have not responded to the corner site on which they are designing. So it is so difficult to get such sites where it's an advantage of a great sense of exposure. The students are designing in a way that they are oblivious to this fact, and they are going ahead in a very rigid way. The other one, of course, the functional factors like dynamic, static, or a combination of the two, individual or multiple. It depends on the nature of the function that needs to be identified. The other is social, of course. This is the other one. So we are trying to understand the site, the context of the site. The social, that is the end users and their background, their economic and general behavioral tendencies like traditional, cosmopolitan, age group, etc. These come into picture. They have to be identified so that whatever strategy that is being formulated at the end of the process should be inclusive in approach. That means as many factors as possible, so that you don't take what we call singular method, a singular way of addressing the situation. The other one is, of course, to encourage seamless functioning and to identify conflicting aspects and either segregate or manage them. It's not possible or necessary to remove all the conflicting aspects in a given situation, but we also try to see how we live with them. And how to manage them. So if the student goes ahead with this analysis and this study, he will recognize what are the conflicting positions and what are the ways in which you can manage them or do away with them in different ways, both built and unbuilt ways. The other one is the idea of clustering and zoning, and to understand scale, hierarchy, compatibility of functions, etc. So ultimately it is as we live, we have to meet and work with so many people, sometimes conflicting, sometimes compromising, sometimes cooperating. All these things have to be ultimately brought into the space that is being tackled by the student at a given particular time. So this is the second assignment that talks about context. So you're creating a context by understanding all these things, and a context which goes with the parameters that have already been dealt with. So there are some types I have given. It's not necessary that one should stick to it. And at this level, we are not still designing complete buildings as such. It is partial open and partially built semi-open type of structures where simultaneously things can happen. And they can overlap also, and they can merge also. They can reach out also. So the student has to understand and work out the various possibilities, and that can be limitations that can be understood in that given context. So essentially, because I have dealt with a couple of studios like this, we did a couple of exercises leading to exhibitions, like it was a material exhibition, in architectural materials exhibition. So it was a definition of spaces and movement and the colors, textures, method of display, whom to address this particular space, that became quite important than the very structure and the very building that was in. The other thing is museum also. It can be open air. So it's the articulation of spaces using different types of elements like textures, colors, forms, movement, and the way the articulation is done can be either in different levels or simultaneously. There are different ways of doing it. Similarly, others like youth camp or youth hostel. And the other one is, of course, rural study, like for example, weekly shanties, or what we call Sante, is a beautiful example of how a transient space assumes so much importance for a short while, and after that, everything disappears. But people keep coming after them, both the sellers and the buyers. They know where they have to meet actually. And year, week after week, people come back and occupy the same space. And there's a very nice hierarchy without any what we call structuring. They themselves organize the space and then they use it. So any one of these topics can be taken up for greater study, and essentially confluence of the activities and the space, the context they create for themselves. For example, in the shanty, it may be a bangle seller, it may be a meat stall, or somebody who's selling some goats, chicken, or something like that. They all have designated places without being told as to why and what exactly and where exactly they should go. And this is a very interesting, what we call it is developed over time, and it has come into picture on its own because of its own dynamics. These aspects can be studied essentially and presented usually in the physical visual way, as well as graphical representation regarding movement, regarding aspects which create this sense of place for each one of these activities. So this again is a second assignment, and it runs over 3 weeks. So it can be very invigorating and exploring. I have got the work done in elective regarding this. For example, Madiwala Sante or Yeshantpur Sante, or there are weekly shanties elsewhere also in smaller towns. And sometimes various types of activities will be taking place both laterally and multiple ways, both linearly and multiple ways. That's quite interesting to understand and identify and understand how these things happen, where conflicts will be there, how they manage the conflicts. This can be obtained in this study of these weekly shanties. It's a very interesting space. Similarly, the other the works also, like for example in Eidgah Madam Chamarajpet, during the Muslim festivals you find a lot of goats coming there, being brought there and being sold there. So once the activity disappears, it becomes a multifunctional space. So that sense of dynamism that flows around the space is quite amazing and quite interesting. So we come to the last one, that is what is stated as the first one in the syllabus. I'm taking it of the last one because it's quite complex, and this can be dealt with even at the 7th semester design studio, that is urban design studio. So what we find is to understand the meaning of cultural and physical context of a built environment and techniques of reading them. So techniques, at this stage probably is not needed when the student doesn't even know what is a plan and elevation properly and structure them. It's more of observation and learning, by experience and learning. So this process needs to be encouraged that much greater, and then you integrate them into the type of exercises we do. So first I just mentioned about the techniques because we teach the same thing in the urban design studio and the planning studio much later. This is also a technique which is used in research, but it's not necessary at this stage. But nonetheless, we have just mentioned about 3 techniques. There are a few more. The one is layered technique, comparative technique, and historical techniques. Then of course, I come to the layers one, that is the physical layer, that is location, access, size, networks of different types. You got a network of streets, network of communication, oral. You got in the case of urban scenario, you got telecom network, health network, security network. There are different types of networks operating simultaneously in and around the site, chosen site if it's necessary. We take whatever that's necessary for us to complement. I'm using scale and hierarchy in different contexts here. Maybe of functions, maybe of spaces, maybe of types of environments that we come across. All these are to be included in the particular study that we take. Go to the next one. That is
the work you have done, and make it into a collaborative design interaction iteration program of working that again with the students and creating further development. And that will take any number of weeks that is available. It doesn't matter, but the whole process is something of doing something initially, it could be individually or in smaller group, and working it out or developing it with a group which involves one teacher and some students, 3 or 4 students, depending upon the dynamics or the composition you have in your class. And you rework on that and get into details where the concept can be converted into you go back to concept level. Concept can be converted into a workable, buildable program for different contests. That will be a very complex exercise. It could lead to a complex design solution as well. One more thing, this will be the last one, I would like to emphasize here is that in our all instructions and design evaluations, which also goes as part of the instruction or the skill development, the criteria very often is innovation. I am not saying that innovation is bad. Innovation is good, but innovation for the sake of innovation is always bad. So innovation is not the fundamental requirement for appreciating good architecture. It is the appropriateness. I would put the appropriateness as the first and the innovation as second. Appropriateness is the context. Appropriate context means social, economical, client, the user groups, and the building industry. Where you are working. Are you working for the well-developed building industry of one town or one country or some other place? Your requirements are different. Levels of resolution, teamwork, knowledge base, output, and ideological consistency. Not that ideology is important, but or neither not important as well. I do not take any ideological positions, but ideological consistency throughout the project. This should be the basis of evaluation, and the appropriateness, I would put it first. Actually, it has come second, and not to stress too much on innovation alone. Thank you very much. And that is all.
I think we'll break for lunch now. It's just downstairs, and we'll assemble as soon as possible. Swaminathan, who was supposed to speak between 4:40 to 5, is right now taking stage, and he's going to speak on first semester studio. And I guess he is improvising because he had a presentation. He's speaking without his presentation. Thanks.